Hey guys, what's going on? It's 2 Minutes to Review. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zack.
And if you haven't joined us for one of these episodes before, what we do is we review an album, and the person with the longest album review in under 2 minutes wins.
Woo!
So now, with February almost in our rear views, there have been a lot of major releases, and this one is no exception. So, Zack, why don't you let them know what we're reviewing today?
Well, the Prince of Darkness himself has returned. Solo album number 12, Ordinary Man, has finally been released, and it comes at a really dark time for Ozzy, if you think about it. I mean, he's literally been going through so many health scares. He just revealed that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease for a while now, and he's missed literally a whole U.S. tour last year. And he was supposed to go on tour again in 2020 until, depending on who you ask, and as of right now, it's still canceled. But even literally, if there's ever a time to be kind of scared for Ozzy, it's now. So that kind of goes into listening to this album a little bit even sadder, dare I say. But even with all that aside, everyone knows how much we love Ozzy Osbourne here. I mean, we did a whole episode dedicated to Black Sabbath, which if you haven't listened to, do it. If you have to pick 3 Black Sabbath songs. So I just think it's a no-brainer that we have to review Ordinary Man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And anytime that Ozzy puts anything out, because he is that iconic name and that iconic voice, I mean, you kind of have to stand up and take notice.
I think what makes this release even more special is that it's not the typical players involved.
No, this is very much so more all-star band-ish.
So, I mean, for those who don't know, producer Andrew Watt, who's done a lot of guitar playing on his own even before he got into the producing and songwriting game. Andrew and Ozzy met while working on the Post Malone song Take What You Want, which I actually really, really like, but that's a different discussion. And Andrew convinced Ozzy, like, listen, just give me 4 to 6 weeks, we can make an album. And so Andrew took over the majority of the guitar work on the album. And then he also brought Guns N' Roses' Duff McKagan and Red Hot Chili Peppers' Chad Smith to round out the rhythm section, which
is really like an interesting pairing for Ozzy.
I mean, I almost would rather them just called it a whole new band group and just been in awe of the supergroup that they formed.
When I first heard the pairing, I'm like, how did you manage to put this together?
Like you want to talk about people? If like, all right, if Ozzy ever decided to like form his own Black Sabbath, maybe a different guitar player, but we'll get into that part a little bit. But if you have to find a replacement for Geezer and Bill Ward, I'd say Duff McKagan and Chad Smith are pretty high up there in whoa, I'll give this a shot.
Yeah, and well, but I'm not going to say anything else until we get to
because we're getting ahead of ourselves. With that in mind, Matt,
Zack,
I want to go first.
Okay.
So please get the Epic Footnote Productions official timekeeper ready for me.
All right, it is indeed ready, and no, I did not have to waddle around the studio and find out where we put it.
It took you a full 15 minutes to find it. No one realizes this. It took him a full 15 minutes to find the official timekeeper.
The illusion is shattered.
Yeah. All right.
Ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right, this is not going to be a totally negative review, I promise. But let's start off with the negatives about Ordinary Man. Probably the biggest issue with the album as a whole is, frankly, Ozzy's lyrics. I'm sorry, but when he's not singing about being so lonely while suffering in his own personally made hell, he comes up with some downright just silly, laughable lyrics that make actually pretty good sounding songs hard to take seriously. And right to mind comes Straight to Hell, Eat Me, Scary Little Green Man. Cool music, but then suddenly you listen to the lyrics and I'm like, oh God, no, really? And then another issue is the inconsistency of producer Andrew Watt's guitar playing. And I'm not saying he's bad at it, but while at some points he pulls off sounding like Tony Iommi and pulling off those very Black Sabbath-y riffs, maybe a little too well even, because gotta remember, it's an Ozzy solo record, not Black Sabbath record. At other points on the record, you really do just kind of wish that Ozzy had just made a phone call to Zack and just had him re-record what Watt wrote. And I say that because while what lacks in technicality, he does make up in spades with songwriting. He can actually write a pretty cool and at least catchy riff. And I agree that not every solo needs to be a shredding technical masterpiece, but there are definitely some moments that you wish the solos were just a little bit stronger. And I also admit that that's not all of him too, because you got Slash and Tom Morello making appearances there. And I definitely felt like the solos just lacked on this album, which is disappointing because it's an Ozzy record. You want awesome solos. Okay, but now the positive. Duff McKagan and Chad Smith provide the most incredible rhythm section. I mean, their respective performances are truly, truly spectacular, and it definitely helps make the record sound a lot more livelier, especially when some of the guitar playing sounds a little too overproduced. And overall, the overall vibe of the album reminds me of Black Sabbath meets Osmosis, which is a compliment. I mean, it's actually a pretty good solo album. And sure, sometimes I wish the album sounded more like an Ozzy solo record than a modern Sabbath album, but overall it sounds good. So I would definitely say that the two best songs are the two ballads, the Under the Graveyard and the title track from the album. And they're examples of how where, I criticize some of Ozzy's sillier lyrics, but some of his somber lyrics really do sting and do stand out. And I also can't believe that I've never thought about hearing an Elton John and Ozzy duet. And the two of them together actually really does make for a powerful performance. So overall, it's definitely not Ozzy's best work. And I'll admit that even the stuff that he did release over the past 2 decades that was good definitely hasn't aged well. But if Ordinary Man actually does prove to be his final album, I'd say he left on a really strong note.
And we have a time.
Sweet.
And what is your star rating?
So, like I said, over time, there's definitely been moments when Ozzy would release a new song or a new album, and I'm like, oh wow, that actually is surprisingly good. And then as the years gone on, okay, maybe it was just the shock. It's definitely hasn't aged well. I mean, we were even talking about in the Black Sabbath episode how when 13 first came out, at first we're like, oh, this is actually a really good Black Sabbath album. Then the more you listen to it, it's like, oh, it actually really hasn't.
It's the name.
Like first impression,
there's something about it.
The first impression wears off. So I would say this, but it's still a fun. So it's still a pretty solid, fun Ozzy solo record. So I would say 3.5 stars.
Okay, that's fair.
So let me just get the Epic Footnote Productions official timekeeper out of your hands. Let me get this set up. Are you ready, sir?
I think I am.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
So this album definitely sounds like it's coming from an aging rocker and not about him trying to recapture his youth, which is great because all new albums from bands that have been on the older side of the scale, they always try to capture their youth. Not on this one. Ozzy himself, he puts it in his lyrics, and he comes up with some interesting lyrics, especially in Under the Graveyard. It's "Don't take care of me, be scared of me," where he really realizes that, hey, this is not me being a young spring chicken anymore. And I love that he tries to capture that side of it. And then he also kind of brings Elton John into that with the duet for the Ordinary Man title track, and it works really well. But one of the areas that kind of falls short for me, and Zack mentioned it a little bit, is the guitar playing. While you have Chad Smith and you have Duff McKagan, you have Andrew Watt on guitar. No offense to him. He said that he wanted to sound like Randy Rhoads, and he got to play Randy Rhoads. You didn't play Randy Rhoads. You're not close to Randy Rhoads. You're not close to Zakk Wylde. Why didn't you bring in some more firepower on guitar? And why did you overproduce the guitar? It sounded very much so like, hey, I need to try to make up to try to keep up with these guys. So I would have said, you should have brought in a stronger player on guitar. However, the lyrics, they're okay. There's areas like Zack mentioned, they are a little bit silly at times, but Scary Little Green Men was a very fun song, at least in my opinion. And even the songs with Post Malone, I think actually, for me not liking Post Malone at all, I think it works pretty well on the album. You know, we'll see how they age in time, but overall, I feel like Ordinary Man was a strong album for Ozzy, and if this is his last album, then I would say well done for putting this together in a very short amount of time.
All right. What's your star rating?
I think I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with 3.5 stars.
Something I'm glad you kind of mentioned, and I think we both kind of touched upon this, but you said it probably better than me, I'll admit. First, with how Under the Graveyard and Ordinary Man, it shows Ozzy being honest. And how well that works too.
It's such a powerful lyric, and I don't really think that very many people realize it because it's the single off of the album. But when he starts talking about, that now I'm getting older, I'm, what happens if I die? Things like that. Don't take care of me. I'm not used to that. I'm used to you being scared of me. I'm the guy who bit the head off the bat and pissed on the Alamo.
It's a guy almost admitting defeat.
Almost, but
he's still fighting, but at the same time, it's like, I know this is an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And for the exact opposite reasons why it used to be an uphill battle.
Right. And, I love that it's not him. And like I mentioned, it's not him trying to be like, I'm still the 30, 40-year-old me where I'm, doing lines of coke after every show and, getting drunk off my ass or, trying to recapture that. It's me getting older and my mortality now is in question and I'm bringing that out. And that's what makes part of this album for me. It's because he's honest and the feeling is there because rock it's all about emotion. And when you lack emotion, whether it's and this is what I didn't like about the guitar, when you lack emotion, it shows. And the guitar on here clearly is overproduced.
I feel bad even criticizing it because I know that Andrew Watt is coming from a place of honesty and sincerity because I know he's a huge fan of Ozzy and I know that he is almost as excited about a new Ozzy album as we are. But you made the point that he was talking about like, yeah, I get to be the Randy Rhoads and I'm so excited. It was like, then why are you trying to be the Tony Iommi? Because everything that he, it's not that it's bad riffs either, but it's like, all right, I almost feel like if you're going to take on a gig in the Ozzy's band, you have to ask yourself, all right, am I trying to replicate Sabbath or Ozzy? Because Ozzy solo, there's definitely some gray areas where they blend together. There's a huge, there's a different sound that's almost hard to describe with an Ozzy solo record than there is a Black Sabbath record.
Even if you brought back Gus G to play guitar,
or I'm sorry, Tom Morello wasn't around to do a whole album.
Neither was Slash.
You know what's funny though? Actually, out of all the solos, Slash's solo. So first off, he killed it with Ordinary Man. I think, side note, we can both agree that Ordinary Man, if Ozzy ever plays his last show, that should be his last song he plays. Because,
yes.
And first off, how incredible is it to hear Elton and Ozzy on a song together?
That was
like that. It was so nice.
And it's completely unexpected because you think of them coming from completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. But then at the same time, they've both experienced so much similarities.
Oh, absolutely.
And for them to both kind of just bear their salt. But so I bring it up because that solo Slash did on that song, great. The Straight to Hell solo, I'm like, wait, Slash did this? What? It was it was good. That song was good besides the lyrics and the solo. If there was a better solo and stronger lyrics, it would have been a better song.
Okay. So what I liked about the solo is that it was not quite Slash's traditional sound. However, it was so far removed from Under the Graveyard solo, and how while I think Andrew Watt tried to sound like Tony Iommi, tried to solo and have the production on his solo like Zack, and it just was like a sonic bleh.
I liked the solo on Under the Graveyard better.
No.
Because honestly, it was at least a little bit more memorable, and at least you can see where he was trying to go. Slash, I felt like he just was like, and it was like I couldn't hum the solo from Straight to Hell. I could at least hum Under the Graveyard. I agree that he was trying a little too hard to be Tony Iommi, and that he overproduced it.
Oh,
and
very much
honestly,
so.
That's my only complaint about that particular solo, is that I would have preferred a little bit more Rhodes and less Iommi. And honestly, if that's the only complaint I can have about that, that's not terrible.
I don't know. The production for me has always been a big thing.
Yeah.
And in any album that I listen to, there were some people who recently commented on our review of the Refused album and how the overproduction in some places killed it. Then for me, being a Metallica fan, I remember the big thing when Death Magnetic came out was that the production was so heavily criticized because the waveform and everything about this was bricked so hard that you lost clarity and definition. And now in here, when you're trying to do what Zack Wild does on like a gig by gig by gig basis, when he solos and he's got that signature Zack Wild sound, you know what you're getting. And to do that and just almost brick it in a sense, and it just sounds like everything's so mushed together that you lack that definition.
You know what's funny? It's not even that I wanted Zack Wild back either.
It's not that. It's
because
just,
honestly, the live Zack Wild's phenomenal. And he was so much fun to see back with Ozzy on stage, more so than I was expecting. But Black Rain, I'm sorry, that was such a mediocre album, and you can tell that everyone involved was just phoning it in, especially Zack.
Right, but
so I actually would have loved a different guitarist. Long story short,
right, but I mean, him coming from a place saying that he wanted to be Randy Rhoads, but then to me, his production made him sound like Zack Wild. So you put those two together, somehow that manifested in Tony Iommi with a completely overproduced solo. But be that as it may, we know that none of this matters.
No, we're just shooting the crap now. Whatever that saying actually is.
Shoot the shit?
Oh, I didn't want to curse.
Well, I did.
Well, frick. So let's get the new and improved Epic Footnote Productions official drum machine ready.
Sounds better, doesn't it?
A lot better.
All right, Zack.
Is that a Yamaha? Wow. What's my time?
Your time. 3 minutes, 17 seconds.
I knew I went over.
Over is not even the word. This is 2 minutes to review, Bush League. Well, it does. It's on record.
I had a lot of opinions. Well, Matt, do you think you did better?
Slightly.
Did you, though?
Yeah.
Well, wind up that new and improved drum machine.
I can't believe I found this.
Yeah, where did you get it? Like, what, is this Guitar Center? Or?
No, this is this is like thrift store.
It's big, too.
And not Macklemore thrift store. It is. It's nice, though.
Do we really need this much drum, though?
You can't have too much drum and you can't have too much cowbell.
Pretty sure you can.
So what's my time?
You can. Oh, yeah. 2 minutes.
Oh.
And 8 seconds.
Wow, okay.
So you definitely beat me by a minute, but guess what? We both lose.
Yes, we do. However, you win because you got a great comprehensive review of the new Ozzy album.
Did they, though?
Yes, they did.
Well, let us know if you agree with that statement. Comment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on YouTube. Let us know whether you agree or disagree with our review, or what you just think of the record itself. We want to hear from you, and we hope that you tune in for another episode from us. Thanks so much for listening.
Take it easy, guys.